Uh, this is not just a conflict, and Russia understands this. It's not just a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. I think the NATO folks are frankly shocked at how quickly these advanced Leopard tanks have been taken out of the battle. I mean, just like that. They didn't last more than a couple of hours. What's happening now is massive numbers of Ukrainian armored formations and vehicles are being destroyed, and with it, the troops. The fatality rate for Ukrainian troops now, I think, is approaching 8, 9, 10 to 1. And they can't continue to sustain such losses. So it's just, and they're being pushed into this by the West. I mean, this is criminal what's going on. They can sit off at some distances of like 10 kilometers and fire their missiles at the advancing armored vehicles, tanks, and take them out. So they don't have to get up real close and put themselves at risk of being shot down by a surface-to-air missile shoulder launch, such as the Stinger. The Russians have prepared and trained for that because they recognized they were going to have to defend against possible invasions of their country. So we have even our best generals don't have the experience in this. They don't have the training in it. It's all theoretical. Driving tanks around the desert in Iraq against very poorly trained Iraqi troops does not even begin to match what is taking place on the ground in Ukraine, and learning some hard lessons.
What about those F-16s that the president boasted about when he was in Hiroshima? I gather they have not yet arrived, or if they have arrived, they haven't trained the Ukrainian pilots how to use them.
Biden's like that parent that's telling his kid, yeah, I'm going to get you a pony for Christmas. He just didn't specify it's Christmas. Those planes are a long ways off. They're not going to show up in the next month or two piloted by Ukrainian pilots. Now, there's always the possibility, and I've heard some rumblings about this, that in the desperation to try to save the situation, that NATO and the United States may actually put their own pilots in some of these aircraft and try to put them into the battle to help save Ukraine. If they do that, it's going to be disastrous for
Larry,
the West.
If they do that, it's World War III. If American fighter pilots are flying American F-16s that have been sold to the Germans and repurposed for our use, and they're shot down and their bodies come home in body bags, it's war.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's where we are headed towards that. There is the Biden administration cannot take its foot off the gas, and they're not willing to step back and recognize what is taking place on the ground. It would be one thing, I get accused of being a puppet of Putin and spelling out Russian disinformation, but facts are facts. The Ukrainian Air Force is virtually non-existent, and what it has is very limited in the operations it can carry out. They're not sitting there on ample supplies of tanks, nor do they have factories that are cranking out tanks or armored vehicles or artillery shells or artillery pieces. Russia has all that. Russia has probably after the United States, the second largest air force, at least in that theater. And they continue to build planes, tanks, artillery pieces, shells. Everything they need comes internally. They don't have to rely upon some foreign supply. And I just beg people to wrap their minds around the understand fact. Once you understand that, then you'll understand why Ukraine cannot win this war, even with support from NATO. It's not just a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Russia realizes it is now in a life and death struggle with NATO, with the United States.
Since last we spoke, there's been a lot of speculation about the destruction of the dam in eastern Ukraine. What is your take as to whether the Russians did this as an instrument of war, the Ukrainians did this to help them in their spring offensive, or it was just some sort of a neutral, non-military event?
I think the Ukrainians did it as part of their ongoing offensive or attempted offensive. There was nothing for Russia to gain by doing this. There was something for Ukraine to gain in terms of pushing Russian forces out of certain areas, and then potentially creating an opening that they down the road might be able to do a cross-river attack. It has not destroyed any of the Russian defensive lines, despite some of the earlier claims. And Russia's in a position that it can defend against whatever Ukraine decides to try to throw at it.
Here's a rather uncomfortable remark from President Zelensky. He doesn't seem to be too thrilled at what he calls as Western indifference to the humanitarian suffering of the Ukraine people. Now, unfortunately, we see that at some level the attack on the Kalakova hydroelectric power station and human tragedy caused by the Russian project, when international organizations that are supposed to protect life on a global scale fail to form and send a rescue mission to the occupied territory even in a week, when some global actors do not dare to come out with clear and strong statements condemning this latest Russian war crime, terrorists are simply fueled. Wow. Is he biting the hand that has been feeding him?
No, I think he's giving away the game. Because when he starts complaining that the West has not sent forces in there to, quote, conduct rescue operations, he's revealing what the plan was. Create this incident to try to create a pretext or a predicate that would force the West to come in and respond.